How's it goes, Slugger? My name is Banana Peppers and Nutmeg. You know, the spice. Great for baking and cooking and making things taste a little better. But my experience with Nutmeg wasn't that. Well, I mean, it was that, but not entirely. Kinda, sorta. Look, just back up a second. Today, I want to regale you with a tale of times past. When I was a freshman in high school and I got out of my mind off Nutmeg. But before that, a warning. Warning, this Banana Peppers video may contain upsetting subjects that you may not wish to view and/or listen to. Notable topics of this video may include, but are not limited to, use what? Don't do nutmeg. Don't ingest dangerous amounts of nutmeg. Don't try to get off nutmeg. I have to say that because I am not responsible for what you choose to do. Like, I'm not Mr. Dare, okay? I'm not hashtag all drugs are bad, but nutmeg is not a substance meant to be had in like dubious amounts for recreation. Having too much nutmeg literally means that you've poisoned yourself. This is not a joke. So I will say it again. Don't try to take a nutmeg and get off of it. And with that scary warning out of the way, let's get into the fun little story time. I'll set up this little story in chunks. The before, wall, night part 1, lucid, night part 2, and after. If those names sound weird and vague off the wall, don't worry, they'll make sense as I tell the story, so just listen up. So get yourself a snack, maybe a cookie, and get comfortable as I take you on my wild ride. But first, I need to change into something more comfortable myself. Anyway, so what was a stepping stone for my trip of a lifetime? Well, I like to cook. It's a pastime I've enjoyed since I was a little kid. And a bad habit of mine is that I like to cook at night, like right now. I think it's just the privacy of it all, you know, like the environment, the situation, where it's late at night, you're making yourself a little meal, making way too much noise, and just having a good time. So I'd say it was around during my freshman year of high school, like specifically the summer transitioning from middle to high school. And on this particular summer night, I was doing my usual thing in the kitchen, you know, and I wanted to make a blend of warm, Christmassy spices to put on top of some French toast I was making the morning after. Yes, actually, that is what I was doing to get in this predicament. I didn't really have a recipe in mind. I was just, you know, flying by the seat of my pants. And I decided that to make this warm spice mixture, I was gonna mix together sugar, cinnamon, cloves, and the hero of our story, nutmeg. We had this little spice blender that I wanted to use, and this spice blender makes everything into like a fine powder, so I could, you know, dust it beautifully on the French toast, make it look all pretty like. So I added the sugar, I added the cinnamon, I added the cloves, and then I added too much nutmeg. How much is too much? More than you need. At this point, I'm thinking everything's still hunky-dory. Nothing's wrong in the world and all is good. Little did I know. So the spice mix is made. It's done, it's ready, it's great. Not really. But whatever. So I take a big fucking whiff of my concoction and think to myself, you know what this could use? Some more cinnamon. So I added more cinnamon. And to combat the cinnamon, I added more sugar and more cloves and more nutmeg. So as I'm wasting plenty of both time and spices, I started feeling a little funny. But I just kind of chalked it up to it being late and me just being tuckered out of my long night's work. So I keep working on my concoction, and as I'm removing the spices from the blender, tragedy strikes. I, in my clearly tired and not great state, have knocked over all of these very potent spices. And now there's cinnamon and sugar and cloves and nutmeg all over the kitchen counter. And to myself, of course, I say, fuck! But as a responsible young man I am, I clean up the mess. And of course, I'm inhaling these spices into my system the entire fucking time. And at this point, again, I'm pretty tired, you know? I lost all my progress and I wasted just so many spices, and now I'm just not feeling great. But I'm goddamn determined, if nothing else. And I'm not proud of this, but I decided to try again. Why I'm not proud of this is because of just how fucking wasteful I was being, but whatever. I was dumb, okay, I admit it. So repeat process, you know, sugar, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, blitz. And at this time, it's successful, so I save it and decide I'll make the French toast in the morning. Originally, I was gonna make it that night, but it had already been really late and I was so exhausted by that point. So I wash up and go to my bedroom, lie down in bed, and this is where I start speaking to a wall. The way my bed is positioned is in the corner facing my closet, and if I lay on my side, I am facing a blank wall next to my door. At first, I was gonna go on my phone, but scrolling didn't feel very good for whatever reason, and I just wasn't in the headspace for it. I decided I just wanted to lay down and maybe go to bed. So I began staring at my ceiling, you know, trying to go to bed, but I hear something to my side. Something from the wall. Words, but I wasn't able to understand them. So I begin staring at my wall and giggling, laughing. I start laughing a laugh that's nonsensical, confused, fucking delirious. I'm losing it, of course, but I don't know that. But I was. And I begin hearing more. The wall is speaking to me. And I'm not questioning it at all. It just felt right. It felt normal. Like regular for some reason. And I have no idea what we were talking about, but me and the wall were having a really good conversation. And in our conversation, I slowly begin seeing things. The color of the wall in the dim moonlight begins to invert and burn into the vision of a classroom. It faded into that view, so I literally didn't notice that I had transitioned from looking at a wall to looking into a classroom. And I recognized this classroom. This classroom is my history classroom all the way back in 8th grade. In front of me were my two closest friends from middle school. The desks were set up in like clumps of 5 to 6 tables all pushed together, and the clump me and my friends were in was a clump of 5. 4 desks all pushed together and 1 desk at the back overlooking the rest. I wasn't sat at a desk really, but I was looking in the perspective of being sat in a chair. And in front of me, sat at a desk in the back, was my friend I'll call E. And to my left was my friend F. The room was dark, not pitch black, but from the door behind E, all the lights of the school were turned off. There are no lights from the windows either. The only light I could see was a whitish, bluish hue emitting from the whiteboard behind me. F was looking into the void, the literal nothingness, and E was the only one speaking to me. And it was the funniest conversation I have genuinely ever had. I was laughing so much more than I had ever laughed in my entire life. And the feeling of this conversation was so comforting, so safe. I felt so incredibly at ease. The conversation made no sense and the words weren't real, but they made sense to me at the time while I was looking at the wall. But slowly, my vision did as it did before. My eyes went dark, and once again, I was looking at a wall and laughing. And this is the point where I began to regain some of my consciousness. I realized I'd spent about 30 minutes speaking to a wall, and once I realized this, the wall stopped responding. And obviously, I felt insane. I felt like I was genuinely crazy, and I was fearing that a lot. That I had like lost my mind. I had so much fear that I'd become afraid. I don't know of what exactly, I just knew I was scared. And me being scared, I just kind of sat there while my heart raced. I began seeing something in my closet. Like I said before, my bed faces directly to my closet, and there's something in there, and it knows I'm here. My own rationale was telling me I'm stupid and there's nothing in there, but I knew that there was something there. It felt like everything was moving, like the whole room was moving back and forth and back and forth. It was like a slow, rickety ship floating on water, creaking back and forth and back and forth. This seemed like a great time to finally actually go to sleep. So I shut my eyes and I was instantly sent into a lucid dream. I opened my eyes again to find myself in space, you know, the place up there. In space was a simple wooden floor that slowly, bit by bit, had a tiny cafe build itself up around it. The cafe was missing a roof, and where I'd been standing on the wood floor, a table had spawned, and I was now under this round wooden table. It spawned on top of me. Around this table, in 3 chairs, sat a life-size bear, a stuffed rabbit that wasn't life-size but had long limbs that made it like about the same size as the bear, and a mannequin, a wooden mannequin. I realized then in my insanity that it was all a dream, and that I had control, and I chose to fly away, you know, as most people do in lucid dreams. I jumped up, I pushed the table out of the way, and flew upwards into the space. Immediately after that, though, I woke up and I was brought back to the night part 2. Finally, once again, I was back in my bedroom, and my fear had only gotten worse. My chest was heavy with anxieties, and my heart was racing even faster now. But lucky for me, there was nothing in my closet. There was something in my doorway, though. My room again felt like it had moved back and forth and back and forth, and something was standing in my doorway watching me. I was able to move, so it wasn't sleep paralysis, but obviously I didn't move because what do I look like, fucking insane? Into the hallway, I shined my phone's flashlight and the figure disappeared. Every time I turn off my flashlight, it returns. By this point, it's about 3 a.m. and I'm mostly sober now. The evil mag had finally released its evil toll on me. Still, I was extremely nervous and sleeping was somewhat off the table. So I decided to just scroll on my phone for the next hour, recounting the night, and by 5 to 6 a.m. I actually went to sleep. The nutmeg nightmare was over and it was finally the day after. In the morning, I realized kind of what happened. It was still a bit fuzzy. I knew I was nervous, but I didn't know what from. So I began to search if too much cinnamon had an effect, too much clove had an effect, and then I searched up the effect of too much nutmeg and it was all clear now. I had been enlightened to my previous mistakes, and since then I haven't done any accidentally or otherwise. But yeah, that was an interesting time. So that was my story. What'd you think? Did you enjoy? I hope you did. If anything, I hope this was kind of like a cautionary tale to stay away from doing too much nutmeg on accident, of course. Don't do it on purpose either, but don't do it on accident. Don't use nutmeg to get yada yada generic advice. I'm just making sure I'm not responsible for any poor decisions you make. And I just thought this would be like a fun little tale to tell since it's been sitting in the back of my mind for a very long time. But yeah, that's all. Thanks for sitting through this if you made it all the way to the end of this video. See you later, Slugger.